Hello, I'm Rochelle Carey. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, no longer the fastest growing big economy. Where did it all go wrong for Modi so soon after his landslide election victory? Let's discuss some of those challenges Modi faces. For that, let's turn to Sreeram Chaulia. He's a professor at the Jindal School of International Affairs in India, but this week he joins us from Byblos in Lebanon. We appreciate your time very much. So, to make any type of meaningful dent in unemployment, the economists say that India's economy needs to grow at about 10%. It doesn't seem that the country is even close to 10%. How would you characterize where the country stands on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, growth has slowed down lately. And one of the reasons for it, of course, is that the manufacturing has not taken off. And manufacturing was Mr. Modi's big agenda in his first term from 2014 to early 2019. He called it Make in India. And that was supposed to have delivered millions of jobs. So it has not really progressed as much as expected. So in the second term, there's a lot of hope hinging on this Make in India project, which should generate semi-skilled and low-skilled employment, and of course rev up the growth rate. And besides manufacturing, I think they are looking at other monetary stimulus and reforms, large-scale structural reforms that can speed up the growth rate. The last quarter growth rate was the lowest in a long time. So I think they are now looking to juice up the economy and to get it, galloping as much as they can.
So you talked about Modi's first term. During his first term, he promised that he would deliver 10 million jobs. He's clearly fallen short of that. Do you think that this second term for some people is about giving him more time, or is it that people don't understand the sense of urgency about getting those numbers up?
No, I think, see, there is always, a demographic bulge in India, and it's still very young, and a lot of people coming into the labor market and not having the skills and finding the appropriate, job opportunities. So yes, the onus is on the government, and Mr. Modi knows it. People voted for him this time overwhelmingly in the hope, the positive expectation that things will only get better. And in that sense, there is a huge responsibility on his shoulders. And he has now named a new finance minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, who's quite capable. And I think the price inflation, if you see, is quite stable. So over the last few years, so they have room for monetary stimulus and for reforms now, because the political stability and price stability cushions through which Mr. Modi can, try and, re-engineer the Indian economy on a high growth trajectory.
You talked about the new finance minister. In fact, she's the first female finance minister since Indira Gandhi. Tell us more about what you think of her, what you know about her.
Nirmala Sitharaman used to be Commerce Ministry under Minister under Mr. Modi, dealing mainly with our trade relations with other countries, the WTO negotiations, and all those things. And she has a background in economics, so I think that will help really. She's also worked for international consultancies. She understands the financial markets very well, and of course, she has good relations with the Indian business houses and the national local capitalists. So I think she will be looking at balancing all these interests, and also of course the farming and the working class always are important for political reasons for Mr. Modi and Ms. Sitharaman. So overall, I think she's a good pick, and she makes some tough choices and she stands by them. So she's in fact the first full-time female finance minister. Indira Gandhi, was both prime minister and simultaneously finance minister. But Nirmala is, in that sense, a history maker, and we expect in policies as well some historic changes, including bold reforms to land and labor regulations, which will really, really take us to the next level in terms of growth and employment generation.
So India has cut the interest rate to its lowest level in 9 years. How do you think that might stimulate the economy?
Yeah, consumption as well as credit and investment, all these three depend on the interest rates, as we know. So they are using the Keynesian, macroeconomic levers of trying to juice up the economy with, lower interest rates so that there's more borrowing and more economic activity. And in fact, the slowdown of the last quarter was related to a dip in the consumption. And domestic consumption is the bulk of India's GDP. and its growth. So I think they are on the right track. And because, as I said, the inflation is under control, they can manage to reduce the interest rates even further if required in the coming. So unlike other major economies over the last 10 years, India has not used monetary policy much to stimulate the economy because it was going great. It's only now, that there's a slowdown. So I think they can now afford to maneuver this tool a little bit.
So you're talking about a slowdown. We've been talking a lot about numbers, but the bottom line is a lot of people don't necessarily trust these numbers. Where do you bolster the trust for these numbers that matter so much?
Yeah, there was a revision done during Mr. Modi's first term, and they recalculated the baseline on which the GDP figures had been, crunched out for the last several years, and they added some percentage points. So, it's debatable. I mean, some people say it's actually 5 and not 7%, the actual growth rate. But so is the case with China and many other, rising emerging powers. They have, a little bit dodgy figures. But I think the baseline, if you look at the World Bank and the international rating agencies, I think our outlook has been improving under Mr. Modi. So they will take solace from that. And definitely, statistically and in terms of accounts and in terms of documenting everything, India is largely informal economy. Most people are off the books and off the records. And Mr. Modi has been trying digital economy to put everything on record so that every economic activity is accounted for and added up in the whole GDP calculation. So I think statistically, we should be getting better and more accurate over time.
Okay, let's hope so. That's quite an undertaking. Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.